day. And it's all right here on our flagship station, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. So join me, The Fetch, for Inside the Eye Live every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. It is truly intelligent media for the politically aware.
Most guys freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
The body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting to danger. Unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome again, everyone. Welcome to a brand new edition of The Story Behind the Story. I am your humble co-host, Alex Studer, coming to you from left Frisco, California. I am joined this evening by Major James Burdock, the Thriller from Manila. Special shout out to Jim Cherney of the Goldwater and 8chan Channel Network. Also to our producer, Dominique, and engineer, Mr. Rowe, back at the studio. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Mr. Burdock, good evening.
How are you this morning over here?
I can't complain. What kind of a day are we looking at today? Is it going to be a good one?
You know, I think it's going to be about 23 degrees Celsius. Relative humidity is running right around 87% over here. Traffic on the 405 was a little messed up, though. We had a Cessna, I think it was a Cessna crashed on the 405. So we got a little traffic
That's
back over there in your neck of the woods.
obviously he was not properly in the carpool lane. Uh, it's terrible. I hate when that happens.
Isn't that a shame? I understand that both the people did survive, though. But if you take a look at the footage, wow, that's everybody's going out for their Fourth of July weekend, and a plane comes down on you. That's not what you need with LA traffic.
Yeah, I really hate when that happens, but it's a good reason to have your top up. It's an interesting thing, these small planes going down. You know, over here we have this NASA Ames Research Center, and every now and then a plane goes down carrying a couple NASA executives, and you know, enough so that over a period of time you add these things up, and it becomes, you know, something to really scratch your head and wonder about just a little. But I digress. Tonight, folks, we have a couple of things to talk about. We're gonna be kind of covering the gamut a little bit. I just want to remind everybody this is listener supported radio. And the only reason Major Burdock and I are here to talk with you folks this evening is because a generous listener like you donated previously. One good way to get big bang for your buck is to subscribe to the archives. And that way, if you miss a show when it airs live on our network, you can get instant access to it on your iWhatever. And you also have access to the plethora of other broadcasters on this network here at freedomslips.com Revolution Radio. That being said, we are being simulcast thanks to Jim and his friends over at the Goldwater. Major Burdock is an editor there. And so we've sort of cross collaborated. And big shout out to all of the Anons tuning in to the show as it airs. This is the beginning of official summer for a lot of people. Everyone's heading out. As you just said, Major Burdock, freeways are a bit congested right now. Everyone trying to get out of town for their big 4th of July weekend. Now, many will celebrate 4th of July as the birth of America, but anyone who's really done their homework might come to understand it for something else. The birth of the modern form of the Illuminati. And I'm encouraging people to maybe do a little homework on that. 1776 was indeed a very significant year for both America and what we refer to now as Freemasonry. Um, so, Major Burdock, you've commented that you've been on the air. I suppose you're airing your show a lot more frequently than we do ours. We've reduced ours down to about only once a week, where we used to be on every day of the week for a 2-hour show. And due to just time constraints and other obligations, it just became impractical to be able to do show every day of the week as before. So some of the things I might want to talk about tonight are things you've probably already covered on the Goldwater show, but it'd be nice to get your fresh perspective on some of these. And I'll lead off by starting with the breaking news coming out of San Francisco. Now, folks, I'm from here. I'm born and raised, okay? And I can tell you that I'm not a liberal. I am not a libtard. I am far from it. And I am a ice ball. I am a snowball in hell, basically over here. Um, my views are not taken well. I am not popular. I'm not well liked at all. And when I hear about this illegal immigrant getting a settlement today for $190,000 um, for being improperly arrested by SFPD and handed over to ICE feds under a ruse that they had his impounded vehicle and he was coming to claim it, um, really rubs my rhubarb, because I am all for the destruction of this sanctuary city stuff, folks. I know a lot about it, and I don't think it's good for us. I think it's a perfect umbrella for MS-13 like gangsters and other thugs to come in here and with their La Raza influences really work on undermining what we have built as an American society. So at this point, I'll pass it off to you, Major Burdock, and just wonder if you have any comment on this very breaking story.
Absolute, insanity. $192,000. This is just nuts. Okay, the city pays this guy because uh, they violated something that was illegal in the first place. I mean, if you're trying to, that's just kind of a washing machine of ignorance to start with. This is absolutely insane. So that's not just this particular case. City of San Francisco started their first salvo with the sanctuary city fight against, and of course they've had this going on the whole time by funding with taxpayer dollars, setting aside over a million, I think it was $1.2 million, into a separate little account, separate bank account, by the way, folks. And we know how government officials love to use those in very creative ways, especially when you've got attorneys involved. But that's what this is for, is over $1 million, and then of course you've got people that are stepping in and giving money to this fund, which is great. That's going to create a lot more corruption to defend illegal immigrants who are committing crime on the peninsula. Okay, this is man. I think it's time to just get one of those boring machines and make an island right across that San Mateo County line. What do you think?
Yeah, Escape from New York 2.0. I'm right with you on that. And this comes from the very same people who don't even want to call it what it really is. They prefer to say undocumented immigrants when the truth is they're illegal. They're not supposed to be here. They have no permission to be here. They broke the law by coming here, and they are aliens by definition. Illegal aliens. I know that sounds a little redundant, but it needs to be said. They are not undocumented immigrants. They are not immigrants. They did not do so legally. Therefore, they did not immigrate. They trespassed.
You're absolutely right. And whatever happened to the common sense of, for example, when you travel, when you go, or you live in another country, and I've had the opportunity to be stationed in a number of places, and the you go there, you you live according to their rules. Okay, like, for example, here, I can't own a gun. And I think that's a great thing because it says I think we should be doing the same thing in the United States. Is nobody without a blue passport can own a firearm or have other certain rights. If you don't have a blue passport, there are certain things you cannot do. And I'm more than happy to be over here and be denied access to, because it's not my Second Amendment. It's not my country. And if people want to cut in line in front of me and me get annoyed, it's their custom to do that. That's about the only annoying thing going on over
Well,
here.
you're not a nationalized citizen of that country.
No, and it wouldn't even matter. I would say until I had a passport, until you've got a passport, you should go through a different line in the United States. A different set of procedures apply to you. When
Exactly, and
you
that's why
fly, yeah.
that's exactly why this travel ban that's happening, being restored and protected by the Supreme Court, and it's partially being implemented at this point, is nothing new. It is merely enforcement of laws that already are on the books and protected by the Constitution. They were there for a long time, just no one did anything about them for years and years and years. Administration after administration, they were turning a blind eye to enforcing these very laws, which this guy Trump, I mean, I'm not here to start extolling his virtues because I don't really think there are many, but I am saying this is an issue that does need to be addressed, and laws are already set in place. All we need to do is enforce them.
Oh yeah, it's strictly a matter of enforcing laws. I'm more of a libertarian, if anything, on that matter, because I don't think lawmakers. I think that's a wrong word for them. They should not be called lawmakers. They should be there to ensure that there is enough money to First of all, make sure that we're safe. Second of all, enforce the laws that are on the books. And
Yeah, we're the
those,
lawmakers. We're the ones that vote on this stuff.
that's correct. And people that think that their job is to create more laws, I think that's a wrong way of going about it. I don't think I wouldn't vote for any politician on any side of the party that has that mentality that they're going to do it. Everything, if anything, should be repealed on a federal level and then brought back if there's an issue to a state level. And I mean, right down to a
Well,
county level or a town
a-
level when it
absolutely,
comes
and
to
we said
enforcing.
this before. The Constitution provides that the power that is reserved for the federal government is only that which is left over by the states who have first dibs on it.
Yeah, I mean that's where it should be. I mean, I love. I think I mentioned this on a previous show, but I love the fact that there was a town that just didn't have enough money for a police department. They had one sheriff, and the sheriff just said, "Hey, listen, we had they had a little bit of crime going on there," and he just decided it's mandatory for everybody to carry a firearm, and the crime went away.
Right. He basically enlisted the public to be their own police force, and everyone took it upon themselves willingly and with dignity and honor, and crime went away. Gee, do
Yeah,
the math.
and it goes totally, I mean, that goes in harmony with what the United States is. I mean, it's not just one homogenized country. I mean, you've got the South, you've got different areas that have different beliefs. You've got Utah, you have different people who believe different things about
We've
abortion
got
or
the communist we've got the Communist Republic of California.
yeah, you have that, and but then you've got the beautiful people in Northern California who are good supporters of the Second Amendment. So I mean, everything north of the Golden Gate, I would say. But yeah, we should celebrate. I know this sounds great, doesn't it? We should celebrate American diversity by eliminating as many federal regulations and laws as possible and bringing everything back to the state.
This is something that I remember hearing from the Cato Institute recently, and I don't disagree with.
It just makes sense. It absolutely, and right to education. I mean, why should we have Common Core? Why should a kid in Iowa be learning about transgender tolerance? I mean, that just makes no sense. I mean, it would make more sense for a kid in Iowa to be learning about how fertilizer works and taking, when I grew up in a very rural area, we took a field trip out to the livestock area and the slaughterhouse. So, I mean, that was, it's important to understand your local area. And I mean, to have some sort of broad education that's forced down everybody's throat by people who think that they're endowed with the right to tell people how to think is insanity.
Yeah,
It's
I call
Orwellian.
I call that entitlement, and it's really just yuppie snobbery that it's so prevalent here in town. It just really rubs my rhubarb.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at it's if you're not in, and it's hip to be that way. It's the cool thing if you're not in the in crowd. And the same thing melted over to Sweden. If you take a look at how their view of immigration is, most people that I spoke with, and I was actually over in Thailand and set aside some time. I just was met a guy from Sweden, and talked to him a little bit about what was going on with the immigration there. I said, how do you feel when you get these people out of their country? So we're halfway around the world, and I'm talking to him, and he says, "Oh, okay. Well, to be honest with you, most people know that this is a terrible mistake and it's destroying the country, and it's going to be a major problem, but we can't speak out about it because of the powers that be, because of this trendy idea that it is
because
most."
because they intentionally want it to happen to America first. That I offer that.
I have no idea if it's an experiment. I mean, Merkel is doing it. These people they don't have to live with it. The people that are promoting this, the Soroses, the Clintons, they're all watching this happen through bulletproof glass. and they could care less. They're flying above it in G5s. They don't care, and it's a way to uh, create some sort of voter base. If you bring a bunch of people in that are at your beck and call, and you provide for them, just like Obama. It was interesting. I was watching Tucker Carlson earlier, and he had this great segment about, and I don't know if you remember this when the Obama phones came out. Barack
Oh
Obama gave
yeah,
everybody free phones.
free phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it turns out that they did an audit on the whole Obama phone thing. And it's like something like 36% of all of these Obama phones were technically given out. They shouldn't have been given out in the first place. And all of the power to decide, the people that were making the decisions as to who got the phone and who didn't were the phone companies. And there were phone companies that started because of all of that money. And here's another case. Why did over $900 million for this program, which was initially set aside, and it's well over that now? Why was that put in outside of the U.S. Treasury, so that the General Accounting Office had no oversight of what was going on? It's rife with fraud, and the Obama phone will go down as being by far the biggest scandal, the biggest hoax, the biggest fraud of any form of Social Security or welfare in the United States of America to date.
Well, I don't disagree with that. Having seen some of the numbers behind it, and then seeing some of the recent video clips, and I got to give a shout out to Tucker Carlson because I learned tonight that he's a native of San Francisco. He's from here, and so he expressed himself on this issue tonight, regarding the San Francisco ruling, giving this guy $192,000, and he really kind of dug himself in and took on some heat for doing so, and I applaud that. I can't say I'm in 100% support of the guy because I've heard some of the towing the party line when he obviously knows that he's lying through his teeth. He just has to keep his job. Um, and Hannity, the same thing, but as far as the muzzled MSM goes, I would say these two guys are probably at the top of the heap for challenging and pushing the envelope, and then even paying some prices for it. Most recently, Hannity regarding the Seth Rich coverage that he was disallowed to continue. Um,
Oh, you said it. You said the
yeah,
two words. Are we
yeah.
still on the air?
Well, we're still on the air, you bet.
Seth Rich,
Um,
Seth Rich, Seth Rich.
right.
Is
Yeah.
this
Nothing gets you
still on
shut
the air?
down. Nothing. Well, that and Sandy hoax. And I'm going to go ahead and plug that there's this film that's constantly being, especially now, because apparently somebody posted it recently to a channel network, politically incorrect site there, and within hours it began getting scrubbed yet again from YouTube and other servers. I know the group behind doing all these false DMCI claims, getting it scrubbed. It's a group called Media Matters, and they've been a nemesis of truth tellers from the get go regarding this issue. This documentary is called "You." We need to talk about Sandy Hook, and if you want to get your hands on it, do so now before it gets scrubbed. Download it to your computer. Hold on to it because this is good stuff. It's a documentary involving testimony and evidence presentations from several different contributors, some of which I know personally. So I'm just going to stop there. Your thoughts, Major James?
Well, yeah. I mean, the Media Matters is, oh man. I mean, they didn't even bother trying to cover that whole thing up. I mean, it was so obvious what was happening with Correct the Record, and especially during the campaign. You would see these people. They would come in on 8chan, and they were. This was the craziest thing. All of this vile, you're going to find everything under the sun at 8chan. Okay, I mean, because it's a channel network. It's an image board. So you, people have their own opinions. But during the election, you had this massive uh, influx of just all of this Nazi stuff and all of this. And there was no coincidence that this whole campaign of this flood of Nazi everywhere, but especially on Pole, came over and decided. And then, of course, Clinton comes into Reno and mentions the network by name and starts calling, now there's an alt-right Nazi movement. And I'm not saying, hey, you know what? They're probably Nazis there, but you know,
Right wing
go
death
find
squad.
them and talk to them and find out who the real Nazis are and talk to them, figure out what their deal is. But to just the the whole concept of the left right now is anyone that doesn't disagree with them has to be put into a category of a Nazi, a xenophobe, or whatever. That way they don't have to come up with a legitimate argument themselves. There's no
Well,
thinking
further,
involved.
they're inciting violence. They're straight up calling for assassinations and really just absurd behavior. Now, I remember a radio host who, while doing this on the radio, uh, ended up getting a prison sentence, and from what I understand, he's still locked up for doing so. And this guy Alex Jones, he gets crazy and in fits of rage on the radio, but he draws a line at actual inciting violence because he learned from his predecessor that will land you in jail. But these other people, Madonna and uh, these actors calling for the assassination of a sitting president. Why isn't the Secret Service locking them up?
I mean, it's insanity. They're really left with nothing. In fact, we just posted an article this morning. I don't know if you caught that. Chris Matthews. Uh, this is just insane. Um, it it's on the Goldwater.com. It's funny. This guy, he's actually suggesting that Trump assassinate his own son-in-law. Now, I don't know what what's the thinking behind that. And these are people. I mean, these are the big people. This is Chris Matthews, at the
Okay, well,
major pundit at MSNBC.
let's hold this into context because there's already been a precedent set where you can go to jail for that. There's a 17-year-old girl who just got a manslaughter charge. I'm not sure if it was intentional murder. I think she got it dropped down to man one or something, but simply because she encouraged her boyfriend to get back in the car and continue through with his plan to kill himself by way of carbon monoxide poisoning. This just happened. So if that can happen, where's the charges against Matthews and all these others?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it goes back to the argument. I mean, there was an argument in debate where um, is it a crime, for example, you see somebody on the top of a building, and especially if you don't like them, to say jump, do it, go for it.
Yeah, that's basically the analogous equivalent of what we just saw happen and get conviction for in
Yeah.
the court systems.
How far do you go on that? I don't know. I mean, the law is clear on one thing, is that if you threaten the life of the president of the United States, that's a felony. You can get charged with a felony for that.
Straight
That's not
up.
a slap on the wrist. So you can be charged with a felony if you threaten the life of the president.
Unless you're
So
Johnny
that's
Depp or Madonna or something.
oh my, she's talking about blowing up the White House. And you've got uh, the the threats. I don't know. I mean, it's happened before, and I'll tell you what. I mean, I had it going through my head that after Obama got elected, people said, "Well, man,
Let's call him by his
this."
real name, Barry Soetoro, not Obama. Okay, the only reason he got named Obama is because of Big New Brzezinski, who just recently died. Thank the Lord. But yeah, Barry Soetoro. Okay, and there's a website explaining this. It's called slickbarry.com. Check it out.
So, well, after, I mean, I just remember thinking, somebody saying, well, it's all in the back of everyone's head, man. Somebody's going to take a shot at this guy, whether it's a white supremacist or just somebody that's loony. And I remember thinking, well, you know what? I mean, right after the election, I remember thinking, yeah, I'm not going to say it, obviously, but I knew enough not even just to think it, to think, well, and I didn't even start the thought. So, yeah, the overt actions of these so-called comedians holding up beheadings of Trump, and these celebrities that are doing this. Somebody's got to enforce the law. Going back to
And
what we're
let's
talking
let's
about.
let's get back to, again, we're talking about Kathy Griffin. Let's remember where she learned that from. And folks don't really know this backstory. Her boyfriend is this guy Malcolm Nance, who's featured frequently on MSN and other networks. And he's got some black op background, folks. He was involved in some of these fakings of the ISIS footage on green screen studios. He's very well trained in this art of psychological warfare that we call psyops. So that may not just have been, in my humble opinion, a comedic stunt.
No, it was obviously planned. I mean, we talked about this, I think, last week. It was, you could tell the press conference was such that they were expecting a different reaction that they didn't get, and it was such that it didn't sink. It was prompted. So, um, yeah, really, really interesting things that were happening with what's happening right now. But we've got uh, there's there's a message from our producer over here saying, "You did this to yourself, Kathy," which is now it's now an inside joke over here at the Goldwater. When you make a mistake like that, we now say you did it to yourself, Kathy. So
Yeah, I think at this point, to Kathy is a verb, right?
yeah, to Kathy is a verb. I mean, actually, to Burdock is a verb as well, but we won't go into that.
All right, well, let's cover some of these other breaking stories that aren't really being discussed in the news, shall we? Um, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this story, but you probably are at this point. I'm going to go ahead and just read off a couple of the lead lines. An FBI agent accused of lying about firing two shots at Oregon standoff spokesman Robert Lavoy Finicum faces a 5-count indictment charging him with 3 counts of making a false statement and 2 counts of obstruction of justice. W. Joseph Astarita, 40 years old, dressed in a dark pinstripe suit, make his first appearance on the indictment Wednesday in a packed federal courtroom with heightened security inside the quarters of the Marco Hatfield Courthouse. A lawyer standing beside him entered a not guilty plea on behalf of all charges. He will remain out of custody pending trial. He's accused of firing twice at Finicum as Finicum emerged from his truck after he swerved into a snowbank, nearly striking another FBI agent to avoid a roadblock on US 395 in Harney County. Finicum had sped away from a state police and FBI stop earlier on the rural roadway on January 26th of last year during the occupation of the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. The agent's shots didn't hit Finicum. Are you aware of this story at all?
I saw it briefly buzz through our mobile app, which is News Plus, but I don't think we have that on the Goldwater. I'm sorry to say, but unless we.
Okay, well, this is out of the Oregonian, Oregon Live, and the indictment says that Astor Tita, who had served as a member of an FBI hostage rescue team, quote, falsely stated he had not fired his weapon during the attempted arrest of Robert Lavoy Finicum when he knew then and there that he had fired his weapon, unquote. He's accused of lying to 3 supervisory FBI agents, concealing from Oregon investigators that he fired his weapon, and failing to alert the FBI's shooting incident response team about his shooting. Quote, defendant acted with the intent to hinder, delay, and prevent the communication of information from the Oregon State Police to the FBI relating to the possible commission of a federal offense, unquote, the indictment says. I, for one, think this is incredibly important, especially when we have this Bob Mueller um, uh, quote unquote, investigating the Russia connection, which doesn't exist. Mueller was, in my opinion, hired specifically to cover up the Mossad led psyop known as 9/11 and enforce media complicity in the cover up story. And he's been in place basically doing the bidding of the Rothschild led central banking cartel's will ever since. And I find that this is just another sort of a local manifestation of that same kind of mindset of just sort of lie, cover it up, and deny, deny, deny. Your thoughts?
I think, well, I mean, first of all, one of the easiest thing to for the FBI to do is, in order to, it's probably just the laziest way of going about it. The first thing that they're going to want to do is catch you in a lie, because that's a big deal, and that's how they get you. That's how Martha Stewart went to prison. So she was convicted of lying. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that that's what they went after this guy with, because it's, I mean, typically one of the easiest things to do is to they get people into jail by making them lie to them. So that's not a big surprise.
Okay. I totally agree with that. And I have a special name for the FBI, and it's effing brainless idiots, basically. Um, and after doing my research into some of these people who have led this organization, and then understanding the work of retired former LA station chief Ted Gunderson. Ted Gunderson really did a lot to expose the inner workings of the FBI, what it's really like in the underbelly, and then um, pretty much dedicated the remainder of his life to following up on this pedophilia ring scandal, which has now exposed itself in the form of Pizzagate. Um, so I really am concerned when people like reference the FBI as any sort of credible source for anything ever. Um, I caution against that.
Well, there's certainly no doubt that there's, I mean, after this whole debacle, you had the head of the FBI acting like, uh, when he was first brought into the spotlight, both sides were saying, "Oh, this guy, he's okay. He's a stand-up guy. He's fine." But I mean, maybe you knew different, but most people at the time, at least during the election, thought that he was okay. Um, and little did we know what kind of weird thinking this guy has.
Yeah,
Jim.
I was shouting at the moon, and no one was listening to me because who am I, right? But yeah, I've long since had suspicions and revelations. I've done a lot of research, and it gets frustrating after a while to have figured something out that no one is. The groupthink is so strong that I can't possibly be right, right? Even if I can prove it.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, um, you know, I can't. I'm guilty. I'm guilty of it. I figured. Well, he's got to be okay, because he's the head of the FBI. He's got to be okay. But yeah, certainly, the groupthink pushed out a lot of the stuff that you've talked to me about over the years, and I wholly admit that.
All right. Well, um, on a lighter note, let's change topics for a minute. And all you vegans out there, this one's for you. Um, I know how much of a lover of vegetarianism you are, Major Burdock.
You
Um,
know it.
let's
I
let's
know where
cut let's
I know
cut
where
right
you're
to the
going
chase.
with this
Let's
one.
go to the Yulin Dog Meat Festival in China.
Take it away.
Well, I'm basically gonna, no pun intended, hand it to you on a silver platter, and let you take the honors of first dibs because I'm sure you've covered this already. I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Okay. Well, there's a couple of angles to this one. I mean, first of all, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that you should be out killing dogs, uh, and eating them. Dogs are they're just kind of different animals. They have it's like if you spend any time at sea, you would think twice about like killing a dolphin because they kind of hang out. They're intelligent. They talk to you. They communicate. So dogs do that as well. So I think that. And what's interesting is you'll also see this, especially during the election in France, you had a lot of animal rights people that were supporting uh, the right. It seems to be that they're like PETA has basically like done themselves in with all of their naked celebrity ads and all of this. So this is a really interesting story in that um, I don't think people should be out killing dogs. But if it's something that, if it's a, I mean, again, it's a different country. There's a tradition. They've got their own deal. For us to go into their country, and especially that group, PETA, to go into another country and start uh, throwing around our influence, and it's not us because this is a select elite group of PETA folks, is wrong, absolutely wrong. So um, I'm on both sides of it.
You have a very good point. And
Yeah,
again, this is something that we've been arguing about since we started the show tonight, talking about illegal immigration. We're talking about preserving our nationalism, our constitution, our rules. Our house, our rules. If you're going to come here and do so legally, you're doing so in agreement to abide by our house's rules. And what I'm hearing you say is that, despite the vulgarity of this issue, as far as we are concerned in our interpretation of it, we need to go there and abide by their rules. It is their house and they made the rules.
yeah. I mean, and it's not just China, South Korea, Cambodia, Thailand. I mean, all of these countries. And I have to admit, if I sat down, if I was there in a village and the festival was going on and I sat down, I mean, I would eat dog. Um, I would. So, because I'm their guest. And I'm curious what dog tastes like, actually. But um, I
Tastes
wouldn't
like
go,
chicken, of course.
probably tastes like, I don't know, chicken, maybe, or horse. Not sure.
Now, how would you know
I
that?
have had a horse. I have eaten horse. But yeah, I mean, each his own.
Have you ever
Obviously, I think
eaten crow?
killing intelligent animals is when it's not necessary, isn't very intelligent. It's not. I mean, I just don't
Well,
agree with it.
it's
But
also, if you don't want to get biblical with it, it's referred to as an abomination. So I'm just going to be all Christian on you and get literal with scripture just for that one little moment. Um,
psh,
all right, cracker. Well, let's shift gears again, shall we? Let's cover another story that I have on my little screen here, and this involves now we're going to kind of segue into Israel and ISIS and stuff um, in a minute, but I want to turn attention to the country of Burma, and I'm curious at all if you're following a story. This is from the Independent, the UK Independent. It's today's uh, publishing. The headline is Burma says it will not let outside world investigate Rohingyas genocide claims. Officials say an ongoing domestic investigation is sufficient to look into the allegations. In other words, we're going to investigate ourselves and report no wrongdoing. Um, Are you familiar at all with the goings on, the genocide in Burma at all?
Just looking at the article right now, historically, yeah, there's you know a serious issue there. Um, I mean, a lot of people went missing,
Right.
and
To quote
I
this
mean,
article
talk
just
about,
briefly, the
yeah.
Burmese government has repeatedly denied claims that the Rohingya Muslim ethnic group is facing genocide in the country's remote Rakhine state. It previously brushed away evidence of human rights violations as fake news and propaganda. It also deemed exaggerated a UN report published in February, which found babies and children were reportedly slaughtered with knives amid area clearance operations. Um, it's just more atrocity and aberrations, and I'm just again, if you haven't heard of this, please allow me this opportunity now to toss it to you as the Goldwater for further investigation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and of course, anything that has to do with mass gang rapes, this is just this is obviously something that the fact that these folks really don't want to get to the bottom of it, maybe the bottom of the mass graves, or um, certainly that's behavior, that's guilty behavior to start with. Um, so yeah, we'll absolutely we'll do an article on that. Uh,
Splendid, splendid. We'll look forward to hearing more from you folks on the Burma issue. So next on my little list of items to talk about is this little story about Iraq, and this comes in also from the Independent. Iraq declares ISIS caliphate has fallen after a huge symbolic victory in Mosul. And the little blurb says Iraqi troops retake the city's wrecked Al Nuri Mosque on the third anniversary since caliphate declared from the same spot. And I just want to mention that listeners of this show should be fully aware that I consider ISIS merely just another front organization, another PSYOP organization. To me, ISIS merely stands for Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. And we have seen many of these quote unquote ISIS soldiers with Star of David's tattooed on their necks and on their arms and stuff. If you translate the Hebrew from that ISIS flag itself, it basically provides a Mossad phrasing that's very familiar to anyone in the intelligence community. Um, so for Iraq to announce that ISIS has fallen, A, I don't think is true. B, let's talk about who ISIS really is, because it was created by the UK, the US, and their Middle East allies. I mean, am I incorrect?
well, I mean, I've seen some very detailed synopses on 8chan and a couple of other areas. There were some posts on Reddit going into it. Of course, I've been, talking to you for quite a number of years. Um, I actually I had a joke to throw in. I mean, that would kind of explain the whole suicide bombing thing. That's kind of an identity crisis for them, so they might as well just kill themselves, right?
Um, right, right. And again, I think this is all just sort of Mossad's ploy to try to get their enemies to fight each other, and thereby, create sort of a mass form of self-destruction of both of their enemies. I see a lot of this Hegelian dialectic at play, and this is one of the reasons why I'm not as totally enfranchised with Tucker and Hannity, because they tout these absolute falsehoods, despite all of their truth telling.
Well, I mean, I guess I think I asked you this before, but how high? I mean, who really is? I mean, you get to the end of it. You've got Mossad, right, and everything that is Jewish. That there's a. I'm carefully choosing my words here because I don't want you to jump on me. the the tie-ins that are way too intricate for me to go into right now. That I mean, tied into the Illuminati, tied into I'm not sure which path it goes, but I tend to take things as close as I can to, like, for example, uh, getting into the whole Epstein thing. I read quite a bit of information, and it made sense to me that Epstein was a Mossad operative, setting the highest levels of government up, both in Britain, the United States, and other countries, for child pedophilia.
That
So
makes
that
sense to me because that's
so
the easiest way to blackmail them into your service.
right, and so when you say something like what you just said, it's I'm open to it. I mean, I'm absolutely open to whatever tie-ins, because I would have never thought that before until I started reading what their methods were, and their
And
methods
this is, folks,
are
this is a
identical.
great opportunity. This is, I'm sorry, but this is a great opportunity, folks, for you new to the show listening, to dive into those archives of the show and where True has been hosting and talking endlessly about this very topic. In my opinion, very few are as researched and tuned into this one as the host of the show, Dr. A. Truott. He's written about it prolifically on his blog, which is atruott.com, spelled ATRUEOTT.com. And some of his recent posts include revelations about our sitting president right now, this Drumpf guy. Um, but his tie-ins are clear, and a basic way for me to summarize that is that they operate out of this Masonic lodge that they have known as B'nai B'rith, and together with the Council of 33 and the 13, comprise the highest cornerstone, the capstone, if you will, of the Masonic pyramid, handing out marching orders to everyone below them. I know it sounds weird, folks, but this is in essence what we've referred to in the past as the Jewish mob. And this functionary arm of the Rothschild-led banking central banking cartel, which created the state of Israel in 1948, and in doing so, this enforcement thug arm known as Mossad, um, basically carries out the marching orders from that group. This is my understanding, anyway.
So has anyone challenged them? I mean, I'm just curious if there's a group, or if you were to challenge them, who would be the best group of people in the world to go up against these guys, if you wanted to unseat them?
Well, I think that's a conversation for us to have with the host of the show, Dr. Truott, who sadly can't join us tonight. He's off in a remote area where his internet is very spotty, and we're looking forward to hearing his update on where we left off on last week's show, which is his efforts to begin drafting forward the new uh, free state of Jones kind of mentality in a real working form. Um, and if you remember, you offered to host that, and we're actually, in my I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. So
Yeah, absolutely. What we'd like to do is just set aside some hosting, and again, open invitation. That's exactly what the whole spirit of the Goldwater and the 8chan is opinions from everywhere. But we tend to like people who are intelligent and very well articulated. So um, we're very, very excited, open arms over here to host and to get the opinions of Dr. True and yours out to more people. I mean, that's what we're
well,
about.
I'm humbled and honored, and you've been a longtime friend of mine since before we started doing these broadcasts, and my hat's off to Jim and everybody for doing what they do and providing what I have recognized as the despite being the most vile place on the internet, is the real last bastion of free speech and discourse, allowing for the true real time investigations of issues that should affect everyone, all of us, and everyone should be equally concerned about. So, great to know you. Great to be on the air with you folks. We're going to take a break here in about a minute and a half. Don't go away, folks. You're listening to The Story Behind the Story with your humble co-host from San Francisco, Alex Studer, and Major James Burdock from the other ends of the earth, the Thriller from Manila, who is also the editor of the Goldwater. And this show is being rebroadcast thanks to Jim Cherney of the Goldwater and 8chan. So again, hats off to all you new listeners. Thanks for tuning in with us. We'll see you back here after the break. I'm sorry, I jumped in a little too early. We still got about a minute and a half left. So when we come back for the second hour, Major James, maybe think about a couple things you'd like to talk about. I still got a couple things on my list, including new Israel strikes against Syria. We got some new Podesta emails, things being talked about. Apparently, Podesta was in a closed hearing this past week. I'm curious if anything's come of that. Also,
we've got a good one on. It's basically a new disease. It's called TDS. It's extremely important that we talk about this. We'll be talking about TDS. Everybody needs to be aware. This will be more of a public service announcement, a health announcement as well.
Good, because we're always concerned about those issues. I'm the host of my little blog over at labvirus.com. Always concerned about bioweaponry and issues affecting public health. So when we get back for the second hour, we'll be talking about that. We'll probably do a little Hitler 101, the story never told, just to review for those who didn't really get the memo. And then we'll talk a little more about Pizzagate. Something new in the news regarding Comet Pizza and James Alefantis, the infant lover. Once again, you're listening to The Story Behind the Story on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Without your listener donations, we don't have a show. So please donate. Please subscribe to the archives. Your money goes well spent toward keeping shows like this alive. We will be back in the second hour after this short break. Thanks for listening. Don't go away.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Enjoy your extra big-ass fries.
You didn't give me no fries. I got an empty box.
Would you like another extra big-ass fries?
I said I didn't get any.
Thank you. Your account has been charged. Your balance is 0. Please come back when you can afford to make a purchase.
No.
I'm sorry you're having
Come
trouble.
on. My kids are starving.
Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or if you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning how to do everything website all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What we do in life, it goes in eternity.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Oh, yes, folks, you got to listen up. Truth is your doctor. So is music. Music is my doctor. And one other website I have, folks, is one dedicated to the music that I create, alexstudermusic.com. And you can go there and you can preview an album that I released in February of 2014 called One. There's 19 songs on it. And if you like it, you can go to the little link there and buy yourself a copy. I worked long and hard on it. Some of those songs are well over 20 years old. They represent a wide span of my life experience, and a lot of time, energy, and money went into creating those songs. It's not cheap making a record. Hopefully, I'll get another one out soon. Trying to publish all the old stuff, so frankly, I don't have to listen to them anymore, and I can maybe start writing some new things here in the studio. You're listening to The Story Behind the Story. Today is Friday, June 30th, 2017. This is the second hour coming to you live from San Francisco. This is your humble co-host, Alex Studer. And from the other side of the planet, which I'm not going to use that word, I'm going to say other side of the world. I don't like using the word planet, folks, and anyone who knows me well enough understands why. Burdock may not agree with me, but he's there, the thriller from Manila, Major James Burdock, joining us. Welcome again, Major James.
Thank you again for having us. It's a real pleasure.
So we left off the last hour kind of mid-stride. We were talking about current events. I mentioned this Israel thing. We were talking about where does this Jewish mob land on the big scheme of things? And I think in order to really understand the answer to this question, you really need to ask yourself, who are these people who call themselves Jews in the first place? And just do a quick refresher on this. And this, for any of you who are non-believers in the Christian faith, I understand that you may not agree with some of the things I'm about to say, but they are well referenced in Scripture. And anyone who knows the authenticity of the King James Version Bible, as opposed to any other, simply for the fact it has no copyright, should understand the true nature of these words and what they mean. And I will begin by pointing out to Revelation 2, verse 9 and 3, verse 9, which in essence say, those who say they are Jews but are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. And if you really do your homework and you understand the Scripture and the story of where these people came from, they were at first referred to as Kenites, descendants of Cain. And if you understand the story of Cain and Abel and the twin dual pregnancy of Eve, who fathered a dual pregnancy of different fathers, Abel being fathered by Adam and Cain being fathered by the serpent. And henceforth, his entire bloodline carries a slightly different hybrid version of DNA, which in today's terms is most commonly evidenced with a factor known as Rh negative. But this bloodline was carried on through the floods by bloodlines that survived in tunnels, the Canaanites and the Hittites, who then at the time of Jacob, Jacob's brother Edom, also known as Esau, he forsake the Lord and basically for a bowl of beans, chose to spite the Lord and go against him, and for which he was damned. His entire bloodline was damned to serving this synagogue of Satan, and they're now known as Edomites. They are full Canaanites. They still carry the original DNA of Cain. And I just refer to them as critters because many of them are shape-shifting lizard critters. Many of them are quite capable of some pretty absurd things that most would only read of in a fantasy fiction novel. But they are not in any way Jews, as the term might imply. When first of all, there's no real such thing as a Jew, okay? You're either from the tribe of Judah from the land of Judah, you're either a Judahite, because in that time in the Aramaic there was no hard J; it was always pronounced like a Y. So you're either a Judahite, and there are very few of them left, folks, um, or you're an Edomite, because these people who call themselves Jews today basically infiltrated the tribe of Judah from 400 BC to the time of Christ, bringing with them their very Babylonian language of Yiddish, containing the hard J. And they made this story up that they are original bloodline of David and all this chosen ones and all this crap, and have been lying to us ever since. And uh, it is no wonder that they've infiltrated all the power structures on this planet and now control the Zionist Rothschild central banking cartel operating through this Masonic Lodge of B'nai B'rith. Okay, so I've dedicated a page on my little blog to some of the research that outlines this true DNA ancestry of this Turkish Khazarian Edomite bloodline. And if you go to labvirus.com, you'll see there's a page called The Edomite Bloodline. And it contains some very well referenced material that all can go and read, um, to show that I'm not kidding. I'm absolutely drop dead serious about what I'm saying right now. So, that being said, let's talk about Israel for a minute. And the latest headline is Israel continues airstrikes against Syria, killing 2 civilians. Now, we were talking about ISIS a little bit in the last hour, Major James, and haven't you noticed how ISIS never attacks Israel?
ISIS, Israel. No, it's like pretty much. Well, you got I mean, you got people that are, I don't know, blowing themselves up in cafes over there. I mean, I remember what was it? Patty. What was the name of the? There was an outfit, a betting outfit that was taking bets on how soon a bomb would go off
I'm
in
not
Israel.
familiar with that.
But I mean, I'm just familiar with the gambling side of it. I know that the cafes and things are getting blown up over there, and there's suicide bombers.
All right.
Whether they're
Well, let's just
declaring
read a little bit
themselves
from
as
this. Let's read
ISIS,
a little bit from this article. Moving on to Israel's bombing of Syria right now. Israel's latest round of airstrikes against southern Syria continued into a second day today after stray artillery shells crossed the disputed border and landed on the Israeli-held Golan Heights. Today, Israeli strikes were somewhat deadlier, killing at least 2 civilians in Quneitra, of Syria. Israel had insisted they'd exclusively targeted military targets, saying they destroyed an ammunition truck and artillery positions along with attacking a tank inside Syria. This is a fairly common reaction to stray shells by Israel, which has repeatedly attacked the Syrian military over the course of the protracted war within the country. Now, the Syrian army isn't very happy with the timing of this latest Israeli foray, however, noting that today's strikes came at the exact same time Al Qaeda's Nusra Front launched an offensive in the exact same area, accusing Israel of effectively providing air cover for the Islamists. Now, I'm going to just say this, and then we can move on, but I've been talking, and so is True on the show, about this expansion program for what they call Greater Israel. And this is, if you look at the Israeli flag and there's the star and then the 2 bars opposite the star, those are rivers. One of them indicates the Nile, the other indicates the Euphrates. And this is their plan for expansion, folks. I'm not kidding. And that's exactly what this Syrian bombing is all about, and nothing more. So any claims that the Assad regime has provoked all this I'm just sorry, I'm not buying it.
well,
Your thoughts, Major James?
I pretty much am at the level of thinking that you're if you run it, the chemical attacks, if you're running anything of that nature, you're going to have deception. It's innate deception with when you get to that level of operation. So how to untwist it and unfold it in my mind is a little more difficult. I
Look,
can't extrapolate the way
let
you
me put
do.
it like this. Okay, Mossad's basic motto is by means of deception we shall wage war. That's basically what the Hebrew in their logo translates into. If they can get us to think that Islamic extremists with box cutters flew planes into buildings and we bought that, certainly they can convince the world that Syria used chemical weapons on its own people. I mean, that's child's play considering what they've already been through.
Well, I mean, again, psyops is incredibly fascinating, especially the bigger it gets. Uh, and I don't know what happens when you lose control of it. Does it? I mean, does it start functioning autonomously?
Well,
Uh,
I'm not saying they ever really had control because, 9/11 was a botched up job. They left their ass hanging in the wind in 17 different ways, starting with Flight 93, then moving on to the Pentagon, and then, to the obvious controlled explosions being filmed and shown in so many different angles. The controlled demolition of Building 7, which folks I wrote a song about. It's ska metal. You might enjoy it again on my record One over at alexstudermusic.com. But I digress. I uh, I just think that for those, and then we're not even talking about the attack on the USS Liberty, which is really sort of what got this whole ball rolling. uh, they never really had control, but what they had is the media. And in order to enforce the lie so that people believe it enough, all they had to do was repeat it often enough. And that's where, again, these Turkish Ashkenazi Khazarian Edomites who basically own all of the mainstream media networks threw down their trump card and said, okay, we're just going to force everybody to keep repeating the lie, even if they know it's utter BS. And this involves, Tucker and Hannity, which is, again, one of the reasons why I don't give them my full vote of support.
each his own on that. I mean, I've got a ton of uh, questions behind what motivations people have. I mean, where they're coming from. I mean, I hope you don't mind me segueing into TDS on this.
No, you mentioned TDS. I'm not even aware of what this is, so please go on.
Well, it's actually not a physical affliction. Well, it becomes physical, but it's known as Trump derangement syndrome. we, we just we
I'm
just
so
had
serious. It's the
I'm
best kind
telling
of
you,
syndrome. It's the very
this
best
is
because I thought of it.
this is incredible. This is it is a and it and in fact actually it's coming from both sides. The concept that this is real. TDS is real, and the in fact it was a liberal who I first heard talking about it, and it just an incredible piece. If you want to know more about TDS, we just published something that's just a gem, a real gem of an article on the Goldwater.com about TDS, and it's pushing people to the point where they disagree with you so much that they themselves become so deranged that any logical argument that they may have had in the first place becomes a moot point. So that's the baseline of it,
So
and
basically, you just act so crazy that you force your opposition to self-destruct,
well, to
which is
self-destruct,
kind of what we're seeing play out with the Democratic Party, right?
and then when everyone cuts to their a camera to them, they're obviously out of their minds, and you destroy you make them destroy their own credibility by pushing their buttons.
And at the end, you sort of win because even though you may have been acting crazy, your actions, while at the time being interpreted as such, now with 2020 hindsight, we're looking back and saying, aha, he was right after all, in so
Well,
many ways.
if you're on the offensive with TDS, it's a win-win-win, especially if you enjoy doing it. So,
Well, it's like wrestling a pig. You don't want to really wrestle with a pig because both of you are going to get dirty, but the pig's going to enjoy it.
well, I, I'm not sure if the analogy there is great or not. I mean, it all ties in. It's hilarious. I mean, I was laughing to the point where my ribs hurt this morning. It's so true, and it's absolutely true what's happening right now. And of course, if you take a look at what happened to CNN this week, wow, what a week they had, huh?
Oh
I
yeah, the
mean,
Clown News Network. I mean,
oh my.
parade of clowns on a ship that's just gaining water. They're taking on water fast.
Oh, for the longest time, I kept telling people that they drank their own Kool-Aid. They drank the Kool-Aid. They started mixing more, and they're really buying into their objective was to um, gaslight
I
all of these
I
people
call
that
this the sorry, I call this the Dave Lee Roth syndrome of kind of buying your own myth and believing that you are a superior human being.
well I mean they gaslit themselves in the meantime, and then were afflicted with TDS. So
That's brilliant.
it's
I love it.
it's it's a
Love
wonder.
it.
I mean, what a wonderful week it's been. It really has been, especially if you're on the side of the media that we are, where we're interested in everyone's opinion over here. We want every perspective, every angle. Of course,
I
we've
mean,
got our
this is
own
also money
demons.
for it's also money for comedians who rely on current headlines for joke material. This is just
Well, the
a
problem
gold mine right over here.
Well, the problem with that though is that most comedians won't play uh, any political thing unless they're in their own little world.
Well, they too are
Unless you're a
afflicted
Jon
with
Stewart.
TDS.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to be afflicted with TDS or with, and that way you find it funny. But
Certainly, Kimmel and Colbert are just complete. They're gone. Forget about them.
yeah, and I thought that this would be a grieving process. I thought, okay, well, all right, so you go through disbelief, and then certainly we've got anger going on, but they're not getting to the bargaining phase yet. They haven't even reached that. They're in a cycle of it's this infinite loop between disbelief and anger, and it's snowballing, and this and the there's there's this avalanche of it, and it can only, I think that we're experiencing the limits of it, and that's the point that we're at, because it can't
Well,
it can't continue. It can't
let's tip it. Let's
continue.
tip it over that tipping point. Let's bring it all down, and let's start with this little refresher course, folks. And this kind of segues from our discussion of like who really are those people calling themselves the Jews, which we discussed in the last hour. What is the state of Israel, and who is the central banking cartel, and what are their motivations with this group called Mossad that's operating with impunity to create false flags all over the world so that we all end up fighting each other and not them because they're all hiding behind false identities, never revealing themselves as being the perpetrators. Um, well, there was a guy who understood this very well, and his name was Adolphus Heidler, and he became known to the world as Adolf Hitler. And there's a story about his true life and existence and reign during the Nazi Party that I don't think most people have been taught. Because remember, truth is told, the history is written by the winners, and he didn't really win at the end. And in a summarized fashion, I'm just going to kind of state that he basically called out these Zionists for what they were and what they were doing to Europe, and in taking a stand against them, basically enmified himself from the West who were all by that point completely controlled already by these very Zionists. But there are a couple good um, pieces of reference material that will help people learn the real story behind this. In particular, is a video on YouTube called "Hitler: The Greatest Story Never Told." Very well done. Certainly not what you were taught in school, folks. And then there's a book which you can find for free, available online in a PDF fashion, by David Irving, called simply Hitler's War. Finally, if you want to learn something about what really happened, what was the real Holocaust, because what we've been told is a Holocaust was no Holocaust. It didn't happen. Let's talk about the Bolsheviks, okay? Let's go back to 1917 and talk about that, where hundreds of millions of Christians died at the hands of these Edomites. Okay, and there's a great website that covers this. It's called HolocaustDeprogrammingCourse.com. And I'll just kind of leave it at that, folks. Truth is not necessarily what you've been told. And if you've been lied to about these things, what else could they have possibly lied to you about? And I'll just leave it at that, because I try to cover as much of these facets of the story behind the story as I can at my stupid little blog at labvirus.com. So that being said, I kind of want to spend our last, and I love TDS, by the way, Major James. That's brilliant. I hope we can spread awareness, make stickers, and do the whole boogie on that.
I don't know if there's a cure or vaccine for it, though. That's the problem.
Well, here's the thing. I think truth is the cure. And Arnold Schopenhauer said it best, and I'll say it again. All truth comes in 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed, then it's violently opposed. Finally, it is accepted as self-evident. So I kind of want to spend our remaining time, if we can, at least let's cover more about the Seth Rich Pizzagate investigation, because I think this is key to, again, bringing it all down. If you want to tip over the tipping point, let's tie the Clinton Foundation to Pizzagate and then watch the dominoes fall. And I'm gonna just bring this up because there's a brand new story that I just saw on today's news, that Comet Pizza and James Alefantis were just featured on today's broadcast of Food Network. Can you believe that?
No way. Are you serious?
I'm not kidding. I haven't seen it personally, but I got this reported from a reputable source that this is what they just witnessed on their cable television in their home.
Wow.
Today.
Okay.
I think this is big news.
And
that's not even, we haven't even gotten to the Podesta issue with him being investigated in hearings this week. I got a couple interesting emails from WikiLeaks regarding him to read in a second.
I have to go back to, I got a question. There's the first instinct that I had let's just fast forward if you're up to date on the first couple of installments of Pizzagate and Comet Ping Pong Pizza. Let's fast forward to a guy going in there with a semi-automatic, I think it was an AR-15, and shooting the place up, but making sure that everybody got out before he did it. And
yeah, can we talk about PSYOP and false flag and stage?
But you know what? I'll tell you what.
Actor?
To me, the number one thing that really set it off for me that I just did not get, and I thought, man, my bells were going off right then and there, was the guy was driving a Prius. Now, most of the folks that I know that own AR-15s don't drive a Prius. Okay.
Bingo. They can't fit them in.
Okay.
How do you fit that thing into a Prius?
And it was his car. It wasn't his sister's car. Okay. It was his car. And that just bothered me. I know that says like, oh, well, what kind of evidence is that? But you just start looking at things like that. And the way that it was done, the way it was handled, the fact that the response time, every time that they went in there with live cameras, they had already, people. There were two DC, at minimum, two DC Metro Police cars parked outside 24 hours a day. 24 hours a day. And their
Okay.
response time is 10 minutes?
Okay. Well, you're allowing me a great opportunity to segue into a current event that just occurred. And Jim Fetzer wrote on it on his blog. And Jim Fetzer, folks, is the author of books like Nobody Died at Sandy Hook and Nobody Died in Boston Either is another book, and Orlando from to Dallas and Beyond, among several other writings that clearly expose these false flag staged psyop events, uh, involving crisis actors, media complicity, and much more. Just recently, and then we're getting back to the Sandy hoax tie-in from the beginning of the first hour. Um, a Sandy hoax attorney was just found suicided the other day in a flipped car where he had decided to shoot himself in the back of the head and leave a footprint on his own back.
What? Okay.
Oh, you didn't get that memo?
No.
I sent it to you. All right. Well, meanwhile, go to my blog right now at labvirus.com, and that link is there.
Okay.
At the end of at the end of my little monologue there, on the second most recent post.
I like
Not the most recent.
I also like that your use of the verb suicided. That's,
Yeah.
that comes from the Clinton days, or
Yeah,
certainly.
that's a Hillary thing. So exactly my point. I believe it's the same people behind these suicidings, covering it all up, and I think there's Mossad tie-ins again to these agendas of these false shooting psyops. And anybody who's seen the film Wag the Dog should know better. Um, never believe what you see on television. Show me the bodies. Show me the coroner's reports. There aren't any. There haven't been. Um, we've seen time after time the exact same people turn up in event after event. One woman who's supposed to be dead from Sandy Hook is all of a sudden alive again and grieving a missing kid in another event under a different name. Exact same person. I could list easily 12 different instances of this happening. So when we turn our attention back to the shooter in the Comet Pizza, you gotta raise your eyebrow and wonder, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
Yes. I mean, it was just too timely. It was just the play was okay. Well, we're the victim now. We're the victim, and now we can't be touched. But it was just there was just something really too weird about that whole thing that just made me think, no, because that was right at the height of all of this coming out, and
So
and all of
that
a
being
sudden
said, I wonder.
it's our fault, right? It's our fault for doing the research.
All right, well, dig this, and this goes out to all the anons listening who are tapped in and can do this homework. Um, since we recently came out with a revelation that there's a tie-in between Seth Rich, White, who recruited him at the DNC, and this Greenberg Quinlan Rossner law firm. I wonder if any such ties exist regarding this shooter who showed up at Comet Pizza.
That would be interesting. I need to go back into the archives myself and start digging around again.
Because if any exist at all, ... I'm just going to leave it there. If any association between GQR and this alleged gunman at the Comet Pizza exist, then oh boy, I think we just uncovered a huge rat's nest.
Well, it's certainly something to look at and make sure that, and the right place to do it is 8chan, because you'll make sure that those folks are, they're gonna jump all over you. They're gonna say, hey, this is you're insane for tying this together. You can't do that. I mean, there is protocol for really doing things correctly over there.
So no, there's very strict guidelines and rules, and if you don't follow them, boy, you'll be banned. They don't have patience for anybody who doesn't play along.
Well, it's not really a ban. You just get hassled a lot. I mean,
Oh no, they hand out bannings pretty swiftly. Let me tell
it,
you.
it depends
Ask me
on.
how I know.
Well, people need to understand that when this happens, this is not any. This is a person who owns the board, so it's just the mod who is just somebody who created the board. It could be you or me. So it's certainly the people that are running the network and doing all of that are not banning people. We don't do that.
Well,
That's
I don't want to be misinterpreted just because of my own personal experience, and certainly there's let me just rephrase it and say that there's a learning curve to understanding the protocols of how to operate within this online community, as it were. And if you're a noob, you basically are encouraged to lurk more and speak less until you really get the protocol down. Did I say that right? I think I did.
I think you got it right. Yeah, absolutely. And if you're wanting to do your own thing, create your own board, create your own rules. I mean, the only
It's
major
entirely
rules.
impossible at 8chan for anybody interested. I mean, it's a free and open board network for anybody who wants to create a discussion channel of any kind.
Yeah, if you have any idea or just want to, I mean, create your own board, create your own rules. The only rules that we have are, they're just the obvious ones. Don't threaten people's lives. You'd be stupid enough to do anything with child porn on there. That's that's enough said on that. You're pretty much toast. And DMCA stuff, which is just few and far between. I mean that comes and goes. So, but yeah, absolutely. If you
Right, because most
create
of
your
anybody's posting anyone else's material has done so with safe harbor and fair use permission throughout the process of investigative research. So it becomes really hard to file a copyright infringement based on that. So um, I say this as we're watching this, tying again into the first hour of the Sandy Hook documentary getting rapidly scrubbed from the internet. I hope that comes to a stop, but I encourage people to uh, pull a copy down to your hard drives and keep a backup of it just in case.
or there are archive services as well that are doing that right now. So yeah, you'll look if you look a lot of the source material that you'll find on image boards while people are doing research are going to be like archive.is or their archive sites that basically go in and grab everything and store it separately before it can be ripped
Right,
down
and there's
by people who don't agree or who might be threatened by. I mean, you're doing something right when they start tearing stuff down.
correct, yeah, and archive.org is another one. They got the Wayback Machine over that's coming real handy. Um, I guess I have time. I'm going to go ahead and backtrack a little bit. And I'm going to get who we were asking ourselves who are these people? Who are these people who call themselves Zionists, Jews, whatever you want to call them? I call them critters, and I have a very specific reason for it. But let's hear it from the voice of one of their esteemed leaders, um, Anti-Defamation League President Abraham Foxman, in an appearance on August 25th, 1998, made the following speech in New York. Um, Gentlemen, welcome to the second centennial meeting of the learned elders of Zion. We have achieved all of the objectives expressed at our first meeting 100 years ago. We control governments. We have created dissension among our enemies and made them kill each other. We have effectively silenced criticism of our affairs, and we are the richest race of men on this earth. Many of you are very busy men. Let us get to the crux of the matter. As masters of business, politics, law, and most importantly, media, we are ready to implement our most important and ambitious program. One that will finally and totally remove from existence the impediments of our absolute control of this earth. I speak of the death of the white race. the complete removal of all means of reproduction of the so called Aryan race. Men, we now control the destiny of this race. It is now time to make sure the white race becomes extinct through miscegenation, also known as incest, and having a virtually zero birth rate. We have all enjoyed the vision repeated all over this world every day of the last white children playing with little dark children and knowing that they are being set up for their eventual destruction. We can ruin the ancient pure bloodline of an Aryan child by convincing him or her of the altruism of begetting interracial children. We must expose the race of mixing of the urban centers to the suburbs and rural areas of this country. More aggressive programs to integrate these areas are now underway through HUD, Housing and Urban Development. It is worth any price to annihilate the next generation of white children. We want every white father to feel the sting of having their children marry colored mates and produce biracial children. We must use our power to discourage white men and women who still persist in getting together from producing more white children. They will be ostracized by not becoming part of the new society of all races. This will dissuade most of them. We will deal with the less cooperative Goyim, also known as non Jews, by murder and imprisonment. Finally, we will see the end of this white race. Impressionable white children will have their minds molded into the agents of their own destruction. Already, our efforts have succeeded in making the men of this race grovel at our feet. Men, you and your ancestors have worked hard to make sure we would have the power to hold the destiny of this race in our hands. Now we have it. Perish, Aryan Goyim. And that was the end of his speech.
Wow.
Now, you didn't see that on your evening news, folks.
No,
August
I sure
25th,
didn't.
1998. That was almost 20 years ago.
What are
So
you gonna do, huh?
I'm sure there's a particular crowd listening to this broadcast tonight from over on that side of the world that probably resonates pretty well with what that guy just said. And none of us really got a chance to hear. But this is, again, the point of doing this research and trying to understand their agenda because they are an incredibly powerful adversary. Um, and they're dead set on their agenda. And they're using every means necessary to bring it to fruition. Major James.
Yeah, I'm just kind of without words over here. That was quite the speech. Um, huh. I don't know. Maybe. Do you think that's well? Here's considering.
you
I
didn't
mean,
see, you didn't see me going there, did you?
no. I'm kind of in this hole over here. I'm wondering if the FBI should be following him, but the FBI isn't to be trusted. So what are we supposed to do about that, huh?
Right. And for anyone who really wants to look into this, there's a guy who did several writings. He was also assassinated for a lot of this research. His name is Michael Collins Piper, and he wrote several books on this topic. And it led to his assassination because he was telling the truth. And this is all about Mossad and their agenda to carry out these plans against their mortal enemy, um, the bloodline of Christ.
Um, can't we just all get along?
Wouldn't it be
Can't we?
nice?
I know. I mean, I don't know. It's just maybe I'm just getting a little bit spoiled by living in a place right now that's has they either don't care or it's more of a libertarian type of live and let live type of environment here
Well, they'll
boy it's
care when
just
it comes into
it's
their backyard, man. I'm telling you.
well that's true. I mean of course there's issues with that, but yeah. uh wow, that's deep. I mean that's really that's some pretty hardcore stuff. That's what I
And again, this is some of the stuff that True is really the expert on. I mean, I'm just a lowly apprentice by comparison, but he is certainly a big inspiration into my delving into this topic and doing the research. that have done. He is truly, in my opinion, a master of this sort of uncovering of truth. Again, he's posted prolifically on it and written several papers, some of which I include in my post, The Edomite Bloodline, over at labvirus.com. But again, his website is atruot.com, atrueott.com. He also ties him in to Mormonism, a church with which he had been a part growing up all his life until he asked to do some research into their financial records and was quickly ousted and blackballed for wanting to uncover the real truth of the finances of these these people using Christianity as a way to disguise a very mammonist, a very satanic form of religion, in which they believe very strongly that men can become gods. Um, Meanwhile, funding this Ray Kurzweilian agenda known as transhumanism. Um, a very secretive bunch, these Mormons. So anyway, he ended up getting kicked out of the church, and over 2 or 3 decades now, has done some serious research into this Edomite bloodline and their true origins and their effect on the world. And so I would say that when we get him back on the air, when he comes back, hopefully next week, um, then would be a good time to pose some questions to him. If you've had any chance to think about what you'd like to ask him, because I'm certain you have many questions you would like to ask.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, not only there are a few people over here that might want to jump in. We might maybe do the next show from the studio and have some pre-screened folks join in just for the fun of it. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, my big issue with the Mormons is it's just the idea of, well, it's kind of handy to make sure that you can have multiple wives so that you can have multiple children and you can start breeding at an extremely young age. And then it's not a coincidence that it's a requirement to give 10 to 15% in a tithe. Uh, it sounds to me like a company. It sounds to me like an industry, not a religion. So, I mean, that's my main beef with the Mormons. And of course, where all that money goes, the fact that you're not supposed to drink caffeine, but they own massive, or did own massive stock in Coca-Cola. Um, there's hypocrisy in a lot of it. I'm just not a big fan of institutionalized religion in general. So I think
Well, here, and
yeah,
and
I
you
mean, the
know,
minute
here's
you have to start paying to be part of the club, and our God is better than your God. That's where that's that road. Haven't we walked that before in history? Don't we learn a little bit from history? I
well,
mean,
I'm just going to say one thing, and this comes from, again, True is a non-denominational Christian now, and I pretty much am also. I've learned a lot about the authenticity of the King James Version English translation of Scripture, how it was created, and why the Jesuits tried to kill King James in the year 1605 and failed. Remember the 5th of November. Um, it's very important to them to try and sell us a changed and redacted form of original Scripture. But I'm a very strong believer in its accuracy and its meaning and weight. Um, and so to that, I say, Jesus mocked religion, he did not start one. And Christianity is not a religion, it is merely the study of a guy's time here on the planet named Jesus Christ and all of the prophecy leading up to it and all of the stories being told about him after he died. That's it. It's it's historical study, and if you understand it for what it truly is, you get pretty clear that it isn't religion. Religion is in fact the enemy. Um, so I'm just throwing it out there that we're coming from a very Christian standpoint, and there are scriptural tie-ins all over the place. that support just about everything we've argued on this show from day one, including even the most controversial one that I believe you still think you're a baller, and that's great. But you'll find that there's tons of scriptural backing for all of those arguments as well. Um, I can't deny that, and I'm not going to do it. So I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, you just dissuaded me. I had a thought a while back that I'd start my own religion. You just pretty much took the wind out of my sails. So I'm gonna just stay the way that I am.
Hey, whatever works for you, man. Go on with your bad self.
Go,
I'm not going to stop you.
L. Ron Hubbard version 2.0. I mean,
Oh,
talk
funny
about
because
manufactured religion. That is craziness. I don't even want to know what you think of those guys. I mean,
no,
actually, I
well,
do.
it's easy.
You have,
It's a
you have
sham.
a
It's
little
still a
time?
scam. Absolute sham. And talk about it's Mormonism, but LA version basically. And it's basically give us your money. We're going to tell you how to control your life, and you're going to do our bidding, and we're going to spy on you for the rest of life. It's a pyramid scheme of the worst order. Uh, L. Ron Hubbard himself was an Edomite, and getting onto the Catholic religion, Constantine was an Edomite who founded the Roman Catholic Church. Okay, that's not Christianity, folks. Um, very few people today who consider themselves Christians are far from it. So just because you call yourself a Christian doesn't mean you understand what it really means and that you are. Let's be real, folks. Um, so yeah, false prophets abound. We've got these Joel Osteens, you got these L. Ron Hubbard types. Um, you know, uh, if you're buying into that, folks, since you'll believe anything you're told, I have a bridge on Mars to sell you cheap. I'm having a blowout sale. I got one with your name on it. Just call me up.
I think you just line them up and knock them down all the way through. I mean, um, I don't know. Here's a novel thought though. I mean, just in general. We just had a show about crime and punishment, so this might it does segue in. What do you
Yeah.
think? What do you think about how? Um, okay, if you're part of the church and you're getting a tax break, right?
Whose
You're
church? Whose church?
any church that the government declares non-taxable in the
Okay,
United
so if you're a
States.
part of a 501c3 organization, let's be specific.
That's religious. That's anyone getting a tax break that calls themselves a church, right?
Okay, all right, but that's
All right.
not to say what Jesus said was a church, and that's
Well,
two
no,
different
but I
things.
mean, I'm just gonna try to get through to the the idea that I've got is that once you accept that, if you break the law in any way and you end up in front of the judge, he is forced to double any penalty, whether it's for fraud, whether it's a parking ticket, whether it's for molesting children.
Well, the
Okay,
same holds
so
true for a biker club. Anyone who's wearing a vest that represents colors of an international biker club, simply for doing so, now they get assessed enhancement penalties for anything they do wrong.
well, no, I mean, I
There's no
don't agree
difference.
with that. I don't agree with that at all. I'm saying that if you are supposed to be supporting the community, or you are walking in one with the Lord, and you're pretending to be this church, this benevolent thing,
You
and
can't be one or the other. You can't be
you are
one and
viewed
the
to
other.
be, yeah, and then you go and molest kids, then you should be
Right.
assessed. There should be a mandatory. There should be a
Oh,
second
I see what you're
set
saying.
of rules for those people if you break the law.
Absolutely.
And I
And
think
there's a
that
great
if a cop gets a parking ticket, he should pay twice.
well,
A
there's
cop,
a there's a great website
people who
that's
are
dedicated.
enforcing the law. It's
Right.
basically
And
it's basically looking at anyone that we trust as a society who is
right.
getting a break, and
Right.
we put our trust in them. When they break the law, they should pay double.
All
That's
right.
my
Well, there's several organizations out there to promote this sort of awareness, and there's Cop Watch. There's There's ITCCS, International Tribunal for Crimes of Church and State, itccs.org, folks. That is constantly investigating the crimes of the Catholic Church. There's the Free Thought Project. I mean, I could go down a list of sites and organizations out there right now that do this very thing. So there you go.
Well, we just had number 3 in the Catholic Church in Australia. Yeah, actually, the head dude that handles all of the finances for the Catholic Church get busted in Australia for uh, uh, pedophilia. So
Yeah, and there's a group called
what's the deal with
Exposing.
that?
There's a group called Exposing Australian Rock Spiders that I read this article from earlier in the day. So again, these groups are hopefully sharing resources and sharing testimony and evidence to sort of tie this. Again, I think it's important we tie Pizzagate to the Clinton Foundation, and that's where it all begins. We're down to our last 2 minutes and change. Major Burdock, do you have any closing words for our listening audience?
Well, actually, just to get back to just quickly, this was on Thursday. Victoria State Police Commissioner Shane Patton have issued a summons for this guy who is Pope Francis's cardinal. The guy's name is Jeff Pell, and boy, this doesn't look good for anyone in that department. But I don't have time to go into all of that, but just want to thank you for having me again on the Story Behind the Story. We're happy to hook this up, have the simulcast, and have all the folks at 8chan and the Goldwater listen to what you have to say. It's really important. So thanks again.
It's a pleasure.
I always appreciate it. Also known as Redfoot over in our neck of the woods. Thank you very much, Redfoot. I appreciate it.
Well, it's a pleasure as always to have you on, and such lively discussion happens every time we get together, man. It's really a fun thing for me. My hat's off to Jim and Diana over at the Goldwater. To all the listeners tuning in through 8chan rebroadcast, we really appreciate your support. To Mr. Rowe, the engineer in the studio, to Dominique, our producer, and of course to the host of the show, Dr. A. Truott, PhD, who sadly is off in a remote area, can't be with us tonight. We'll be back again next Friday, folks. Same bat time, same bat channel. Not sure who it'll be, if it'll be myself and True, or just me. We kind of wing it as we go. Once again, freedomslips.com, Revolution Radio. Your donations go a long way to helping keep this and other radio shows like it on the air. Major James, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time, eh?
Godspeed, sir. Have a good one.
All right, thanks everybody. That's a wrap. We're gonna head out for our weekend break here. Everybody have a safe and joyous 4th of July weekend, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again for tuning into the Story Behind the Story. Good night.